the safeguarding lead and pastoral lead here at Norwood Green Junior School. We're a four-form entry school in Southall. I know some of you are at Southall as well. I just thought I'd talk through very quickly about how I feel that school closure has been impacting on our children, and then take some questions, because I know it's quite an interesting topic. The format I thought I would use is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with. The idea being that we all have multiple needs, and that those can be grouped into certain layers. And at the bottom is our physiological needs. We all need for food, shelter, warmth, things like that. We then need to be safe and secure. Then need belongingness. We need to have friendships and relationships. Esteem needs. We need to accomplish things and feel proud about ourselves. And at the highest level, we have self-actualization, achieving our potential, personally, educationally, what have you. I thought I'd use that model, because I know a lot of people are familiar with it, as a way of thinking about how children have been affected. So where I'm rushing, but I know there's not a massive amount of time, so do please pop your hand up if you want to interrupt. I'll take a question. So the first thing that we noticed with a lot of our children, both in the last lockdown and during this one, was very different relationship with their food, their shelter, their sleep. In families where the lack of children going to school meant that people were not waking up in the morning, or not being motivated to wake up in the morning, sleep patterns became interrupted. We've had children staying up very late at night, sleeping in during the day. We're a junior. We are children between 7 and 11 years old. Some of them were in the sleep pattern.
Stephen, sorry, can I just interrupt a second? Could everyone mute? Because there's a lot of background noise going on at the moment, just so we can hear clearly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. More adopting the sleep patterns of teenagers, particularly in households where there were teenagers. One thing that was useful for us was free school meals. You've seen in the papers quite a lot of stories about some free school meals providers providing some pretty shoddy parcels of food. We didn't have that with our provider. We were on the system whereby families were issued a supermarket voucher every week. This was useful in a lot of ways. It allowed families to budget buy the food that they needed, but also we have quite a significant number of families who are both on free school meals and do not have access to technology to make the voucher. The vouchers come as an email with two 16-digit codes.
Turn it down or turn it off. How do you turn it down?
You didn't even notice us. It's time to celebrate victory.
That's it. Sorry.
Can you just mute, sweetheart, so that we can hear the presentation? Because we've just got a bit. Thank you, darling.
So, for those families that didn't have access to the internet during the first lockdown, or didn't have the language skills during the second lockdown, we were able to take those vouchers, produce them ourselves, and then go on home visits. This allowed us to check in on families, and families who weren't always the most accessible. We'll talk about differences between the two lockdowns later on, but that was very useful for us. We had an efficient system for free school meals rather than things you might see in the papers. The other great thing this year, of course, was the extension of free school meals into the holidays, which allowed us to have a lot more access to supporting families and their welfare. Okay, second layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is safety needs. And this has been a big change in the past 12 months. We have never, as a school, had as many children who are on child protection or child in need plans. We have never had as many families where we know there to be domestic violence and abuse. This might be partly because of the effects of lockdown and what that has done to families. It is also because we have been able to take active interest in the family's welfare because of things like the school meal system, that we have become aware of more of these situations. Because I've been able to do visits to a lot of families, more and more of these things do come forward. One of the big differences between the last lockdown and last year is that last year, and I think I can speak for a lot of Hounslow schools on this, a lot of our families who were key workers didn't choose to take up a key worker place at school. This time around, far more of our small number of places we could have as a lockdown school by the children key workers. That meant this time around we did not have the space to bring in those vulnerable children in the same way that we did the first lockdown. Very different profile this time around. The children who don't have siblings their own age at home, when they came back to us last week, some of them have been 11 weeks without seeing children their own age, playing with children their own age. This is 11 weeks is a very long time when you're a 7-year-old. Not only had they not had access to those friendships, they hadn't been with little children, they hadn't seen their cousins at Christmas and things like that. Also, they have been out of practice at practicing the normal social skills you need to navigate life as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old child. One of the things that we have, I think, has been really beneficial for us as a lockdown school and as a school during COVID, that the bubble system, and as a junior school, we're able to have class bubbles rather than the year bubble we've seen in schools. In order to keep the children intact, playtimes are now organised on a single class basis and led by a teacher. So every playtime is a structured, constructive lesson in play led by a teacher. And that's been really, really useful to bring back those skills that children have lost in the 2 lockdowns. Second from last on Maslow's hierarchy is the needs of children for adults to feel esteem, feel prestige, and feel accomplishment. In the last lockdown last year, our biggest focus was on the emotional, physical welfare of children. We wanted to know that they were happy. That was what we were focusing on when we were calling home. The work side, we produced, I can say this because it's not the side that's involved in this, we used some remote learning for the children. We distributed it as well as we could. Again, lots of families without access to internet and printing, so physical printing of work. What we didn't do as well last year, not just us, but schools in general, is making sure that we were doing work. Parents would come to the school every week to collect work, sometimes collect it for their neighbours' children as well, go home, and then not a lot of it got done. This time around, we had a much bigger focus on making sure that children were doing the work. All the children had twice weekly calls home, plus online work that they were expected to be about and things like that. That's really helped. Children who were finding it hard to be motivated to work at home, some of them would look at their book, talk to them about what they've done and not. It is very difficult for most people in their journey through life learning, the point at which you become a self-motivated learner who gets in the morning, sits at a desk without a teacher or an adult telling you what to do, you work your way through your books and learning. That usually happens to people in the first year of university. It doesn't happen normally to an 8, 9-year-old. Children that we've had who have worked very hard, done a lot of work, done something very, very professional, and we are very, very proud of them. One of the things that hampered some families at the start of lockdown before we could ICT equipment that the government provided was that our children who had secondary school siblings were basically locked out. Secondary schools tend to go for online learning, so the child sits in front of the computer every day. At the junior level, we tended not to do very little live content, much more about producing videos to look at and then study it in their own time. It meant that if you had a secondary age sibling, you weren't going to get on the computer between 9 and 3. So when we were prioritising the equipment, we had to prioritise not only those families who couldn't afford and laptops, have their own iPad, things like that, but also those families for whom the younger children were not going to be a priority, or those families where education of girls was as much a priority as the education of boys. Again, this round, because of the greater academic focus that we do, it's worked better. More of our children have come in having done more of the home learning. Children who haven't, they stick out now. First lockdown. 2 more points I'd like to end on, go to questions. First thing is what we call the problem with the catch-up narrative. A lot of talk about how we can help children has been using the language of helping them catch up on what they've missed. From a school perspective, we don't think that that's a helpful way of framing it. The problem is not that children have missed many hours or days of learning. The problem is that they have been out of the skills of learning and playing and sharing together, skills of collaborating with their peers in their class. The things that they have missed in terms of bits of work managed to complete at home. Massive oversimplifications. So anything teachers out there, please forgive me, I am going to hugely oversimplify. The things that they have missed in terms of maths, they will do again next year only at a higher level. It can be scaffolded into it. Things that they have missed in terms of foundations, topics, they will be filled at some point. More difficult, the priority we have is getting them back to the routines and habits of working and learning together. That's more important in this topic or this hours of this. The second thing, and is a concern of all of us, inequality between different people from different economic and social backgrounds will only have been exacerbated. We know that the families who have found it more difficult to support their children with home learning also have other barriers to learning, be that language, finances, overcrowding, these things. Most of the research into how these long-term effects are going to play out into educational financial attainment going forward, while there's been quite a lot of research, most of it's been by people who have very strong opinions for or against in general, and then the research has been skewed to be making those points. Certainly true that we noticed that the gaps up in between different social groups. There is already, I think, something that we as a school, as teachers, work on. I hope that's been a quick guide to what's been going on. Does anyone have any questions? If I stop sharing, I can see anyone who puts their hand up.
Yeah,
Oh, hi,
Stephen.
How you doing,
mate? I'm doing all right. I put a couple of questions in the chat box, but as you've allowed us to ask the question, there's two parts to the question. One is to do with the fact that because we're a rich and cultural community in Hounslow, and you being at Norwood Green, did you find any specific groups who appear to have more educational and learning issues than any other? You know, did you have a kind of a league table on groups which seem to have more problems? And the other thing was children with disabilities who had Senkos attached to them, or how did you manage and cope with them? Because the aides, you know, the Senko or the carer who was assigned to a child with a disability, how did you manage to support them? So that's two parts of an educational question.
I'll do the first one first. We are, as Hounslow, we are a diverse multicultural community. Our school is probably less diverse than some. You know, our school is historically a school for predominantly Indian and Pakistani children with small numbers of other groups. So we don't necessarily have the most balanced perspective on which group achieving highest there. We do have some concerns about one of our emerging communities, which is our Afghan Sikh community, are not achieving the same rate as some other groups. But in terms of a wider perspective on different cultural groups, yourself, or we're not the most diverse in that regard. We're perhaps not the best person to ask. There's a lot of talk about white working children and their level of achievement. We've got two of them, so I can't really comment on that. In terms of children with disabilities and special needs, I think I can say that too. Our children who have special educational needs, we have done our best to have them in school. Now, because we've had so many more children who are the children of key workers this time around, that hasn't been possible for everyone. We can't force people in. We've identified children that are better off in school. We have done our best to get them in school. In terms of children with disabilities, we have a hearing impaired centre in our for children. During lockdown teaching, what has happened is we've had as many of them in as we could, and we've created a separate bubble. So they have been taught outside of the year group system. They've been taught as a hearing impaired, but that's not sustainable in normal school life, but it's very, very beneficial for those children. The rate that we have, so in year 3, we have 2 separate classes that actually have a number of deaf children in. We've got quite a lot in that year. In year 6, we currently have 1 deaf child. So in years 3, 4, and 5, he would generally play in the playground with other deaf children there at playtime. As soon as COVID hit, everyone had to go into bubble. He's had to play with the other children in his class, none of whom are deaf. In lockdown, he went able to go back into a group that he could communicate with better, the deaf, and he's a really great time in lockdown. Positive. So it's not all negatives, but one of the bigger issues is that we didn't have the space on the bubble lockdown conditions to get in all the vulnerable children that we wanted, whether that's children with education plans, children with work, children with other barriers to learning, because we have the legal obligation to look at the children of key workers, which is, of course, I hope that's useful, Mukesh. I know there's 2 other speakers, and I'm taking up quite a lot of time. So if there's no more questions,
I think Lisa had
one
her
of
hand
the-
up.
Yeah.
We've got a bit more time because one of the other speakers is cancelled, so we have got.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you get to speak to Garvin soon. He's a good guy.
Yeah, we'll try and arrange another date for Garvin to come along. Lisa, you had a question?
Hi, I just want to pick your brains a bit and ask a couple of questions. So I'm a swimming instructor for Hounslow, and I teach the school lessons, and I know that we really struggle with for the children to be able to achieve the national standard for swimming, and now this is obviously exacerbated with the children not being able to swim. So I'm thinking of trying to, well, I've already thought, and I'm trying to arrange some lessons outside school where children from disadvantaged background, if I can get the funding, can actually do some swimming sessions to make up to what they've lost. And if it goes really well, I'd actually quite like to roll that out as a long-term plan. So what I'm asking is, do you think that it would be difficult for parents that are on lower incomes to actually take their children to a local leisure centre in order to have free swimming lessons? Do you think there's any barriers, or do you think that would be quite welcomed?
I think it would be welcomed, and there would be barriers. So we would normally take our children for swimming lessons in year 3. And they do that as a term at a time, a class at a time, and they all put their little caps on, and we walk them down to Heston Pool, which is only about a mile or so from here. I know that parents want activities outside of school. We haven't been able to provide things like after-school sports clubs that we would normally do, and parents ask me that all the time. I take duty every morning, and I'm always asked when are the sports coming back. So there is a will there. In our 2 boroughs, there are enough leisure centres for people, I think, to be able to access them in terms of location.
Yeah.
And I think there's a will, parents. What I don't know is how nervous people will still be about their children taking part in group activities with other children. School is slightly different because they have no choice. They have to send their children back to school. It might be worth asking that question. But yeah, certainly, if I can just take this as a typical school, I would imagine there were parents in our school that would take that up.
Cool, thank you. Why are you, is it just like the extracurricular activities outside school? Is it that you don't have at the moment because of COVID and safety regulations, or is it a generic? It's because you don't have the people to actually come in and deliver the lessons. The sessions.
No, it's a COVID thing and a bubble thing.
Okay, yeah.
You know, we have a good firm of sports guys that we use for PE, CPD, and for other things. At the moment, we haven't got a safe way of having children classes, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be more when COVID restrictions allow, and because there's lots of rules and regulations anyway that Swim England have stipulated. So and they work in conjunction with the government. But no, thank you. I just wanted your input and just to see that I'm going on the right track. Thank you.
No, best of luck.
Rosita. You're not muted, so you can talk.
Hi, Rosita.
Hi, I'm sorry, the sound quality wasn't very good, Stephen. May we have a copy of your presentation later on?
Yes, it's only those slides that you've seen, but I think this is being recorded, isn't it?
Okay,
Yeah,
I was very interested to hear everything you were saying clearly, because I have a little experience around education and schools. So if that would be possible, it's great. The other question was that, do you oversee the quality of the food that's purchased by the vouchers? I know you said some of them you buy yourself and you distribute, etc. If people don't have access, do you do that?
I don't buy the food. We make the vouchers. The idea is that most families get sent the vouchers by email. They send a couple of code numbers. They go to the website, put the code numbers in, blah blah blah, and make the voucher. For our families that don't have access to ICT, I make the voucher and then take it to them. So I don't have any way of seeing what they're spending the money on. With the full corollary that they're not allowed to spend it on. They don't alcohol, cigarettes, pet. It has to be spent on food. But for our families that have quite a few children, the voucher system does allow them to budget and make sensible food. But no, I don't see what they're making now.
Okay, because they could purchase crisps and things like that and sweets, all their allocations. So just wonder. Thank you.
So Victor's asked a question. Do we have a community school on Saturdays in your school premises? No, we don't. No, we haven't had for many years. Sorry. Do they come back as well? I don't know. You'd have to ask a school that does. Victor. Thanks. Marty, you've got your hand up. This is a bit like teaching. You've got your hand up. I can see you.
Is that me? Sorry, I didn't hear whether you called my name, but thanks, Stephen. My name is Maddie. I'm a public health consultant at Ealing Council. I was really interested in your point around the key worker children, numbers of key worker children kind of increasing in the second wave, and that meant that you weren't, I think you were, correct me if I'm wrong, that the school didn't therefore have sufficient capacity to kind of maybe absorb some of the other key vulnerable children that you would have wanted to provide. So I'm just trying to think kind of for learning for, you know, in the future, what would the I mean, what would have been the answer to that? Is it a capacity issue from a staff perspective? Was it a guidance perspective about how many children you were allowed to have? What would the government need to do to enable that to happen in a, you know, for the vulnerable kids? Or I hate that word, but you know.
I don't mind. I should say, you know, I'm not saying it was necessarily a bad thing. The children of key workers need to be educated as well, but this was our observation. So, in terms of the capacity in a school, I'll use our school as an example. You have to put the children in a bubble, so they're in a class with not as many children as they normally would. We would have between 10 and 15. 15 we felt was absolutely pushing it in a class. They then need teacher and a teaching assistant to teach them. Because the bubbles can't mix, that teacher and TA need the classroom next door to be the staff room. So I would put a fridge and a kettle and things like that in the next door classroom, and that's the staff room. For the children who are at home, teachers who are working at home need to be making the remote learning. So what happened is teachers did their planning, planned their week's learning. Children in school basically doing the remote learning in school. So everyone was doing the same. There wasn't a two-tier system. But in order for that to happen, you need sufficient teachers in school, sufficient capacity in school to teach those bubbles, and you need sufficient teachers at home to do the remote learning. There comes a point at which we're at capacity. We could only have 6 bubbles. We could only have 12 classrooms in use. We could only have 15 max. We'd rather have 10 in any of those bubbles. While it's not ideal that everyone is back in some ways, what we were worried about was that the government was going to relax things so that we would be able to have few more children, because there comes a point where you can't do that. Every bubble that you open means that you have to take 2 teachers away from doing the home learning and the remote learning. So it's capacity. Both in terms of staff and in terms of scope. So it wouldn't have helped if we had, for example, the idea of like a Nightingale school, like you take over some huge building and make it a school. They'd given us a bunch of teachers from somewhere, we wouldn't have had space for them. So it's, I'm not going to be defeated, but it's almost an unfortunate fact. You're going to have that. One thing that could change is allowing head teachers to prioritise differently. Price is very clear. Key worker children, and then who else you fit in. Next time this happens, if that's the same situation, then it's a situation.
Thanks, that's really helpful.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Thanks for your presentation, Stephen. And just to say to people, we will be circulating the slides and a recording of the session to people afterwards.
Thank you.
Thanks
thank
very
you.
much, Stephen.
Thanks very much for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm now going to hand over to Rogers to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks. Thanks. My name is Roger Sorero from Rihanna Development Network. I'd do this slightly different. We are a small charity working with young people in the London Borough of Hounslow. So the way I look at it is, I look at one of the programs we have been implementing during the lockdown and what are some of the issues the young people have told us during the lockdown. This is from their perspective of how the lockdown has affected them and what they see as the impact of the lockdown on the young people themselves. So what I'm going to talk about is actually from the young people themselves, what they told us, not what we were thinking. And the program we were running is called Survive and Soar. And basically it was for the young people. We looked at 3 key aspects. The 3 things we looked at were education, crime, and also mental health. We wanted young people to tell us how they felt about their mental health, how the education are affected, and what they see on the areas around crime. So these are some of the things the young people themselves told us how they felt during the lockdown. And majority of the people we work with are from Black minority ethnic community. So these were some of the things they were telling us were affecting them. they felt that there was lack of ICT equipment for engagement in education. Majority of our young people are from the ages of 8 years of primary schools to the secondary schools, the A level. Normally we run after school activities, supplementary schools, youth mentoring. So it was a wide spectrum. And during the lockdowns, they told us that they felt like they were being locked and not meeting friends, and they had lack of space where they could do recreational activity. And when we asked them again about how they were coping, they felt that young people, some of their young people are taking drugs to cope with the stress and anxiety due to the uncertainty they are going through. And they also felt that the crime has moved on to the social media, like Snapchat, Instagram, and other platforms. And also the young people told us that they felt the learning online, they found it quite challenging. And also they felt that the support from the teachers was not fully accessible. And also, like the older children in the A level and the GCSE were telling us that they just were seeing slides and the teachers had limited control of the young people. For example, they'll log into the classroom, but if they felt they were not engaging, they would do something else and not engage with the education. So those are some of the things they were telling us. And also they felt ignored and forgotten by the schools in the sense that they had little contact. And some of them felt that the exams which are going to be taken will affect their future. And also in terms of the various dangers of crime online, they felt that some of them were facing cyberbullying. So what were some of the impacts they told us as young people? In terms of their mental well-being, they felt that the lockdown really accentuated their mental well-being problems, which were there and they didn't realize it, but because of the lockdown, this came into force. And they also impressed upon us that they are feeling increased stress and depression. And they also felt there was lack of interaction amongst their peers. And what was more concerning was that some of the young people from the BME community felt that their predictions in terms of the exams were lower than their privileged counterparts. And during the exams, they normally have an opportunity to do well, but because of this, they are going to rely on the predicted grade. Some of them are so worried that it might not reflect what they might have achieved, because some people might be from a very difficult background, such that sometimes they are not getting to school in time, but does not mean they don't revise well to be able to do well in their exams. Also, we felt, this one was from our organization, we have seen a lot of referrals to KUTH for mental health from our young people. And also this unconscious bias concern that which I've talked about in terms of the grades. So these are some of the issues they told us were impacting upon them. And the long-term worries of their future will affect their overall outcomes in school. Something which we also notice is that some schools that are better funded have a better plan and far more interactive activities than those who are not well funded. So the young people were concerned that they would not be on the same level with their counterparts who are getting the best. And also, the pandemic really has shrunk the opportunity for the young people in terms of their personal interaction, where they could be able to get extra support. So those are some of the things we found from the young people. So they highlighted those, but what next can we be able to do as a community of practitioners or in terms of collaboration? The impact of the pandemic on children and young people, particularly those from Black and ethnic minorities, has been extraordinary. But unfortunately, the sad reality is that the voices of many of these young people are not yet being heard. So how can their voices be heard such that if an issue like this is to be addressed, we think the best way, or some of the suggestions on the way forward, would be to try and identify and strengthen community assets that can be able to support community activities, and to ensure that if there's any intervention approach which is being carried out, this needs to be informed, and co-production by young people's voices need to be considered, such that if a program is being designed, they are also contributing into designing those programs. And that is those are some of the issues that came up. But if I go back again, as an organization, what are some of the challenges we came across as working with young people? When initially, before the lockdown, we used to work with up to 150 young people in our programs for the week. But this really increased during the lockdown. We found out that we had to change the way we were working with young people. We had to offer detached youth work, whereby for the young people who are not able to access services online, it meant we had to use our youth volunteers to print materials to take to them. Sometimes it involved topping up vouchers. But this allowed us to realize that there were young people who are not on school meal or school vouchers, but when we went to their homes, they were much more in need, and we ended up doing referrals to food banks and continuing to work with those young people. It's been challenging, but there could be light at the end of the tunnel when people work together to try and solve the problem. So I'll leave it at that to see if anybody has any questions or anything we can be able to talk together.
Thanks, Roger. It's a really good presentation. Any questions? Rosita?
Yes, please. If I may ask whether there is any data relating to the fact that Black children have lower predictions for the GCSE and A-level results compared to white kids. Have you collected data on this? Because it's quite important. If this is happening, then it's demonstrated through data and some sort of research. This may be an idea for our colleagues at the LSD and public health who are working around inequalities at the moment and doing a piece of research. So I just wonder whether this is just hearsay or whether you actually have evidence around this.
Thank you, Rosita, for that question. The Runnymede Trust has done a lot of work around that as well, so you could be able to look at that, and even the Saturn Trust as well. And there's I think the university UCL is also doing further research on that issue at the moment in terms of the inequality. So it's not just a here. Yes, we had it from the young people, but also when we went and looked at, we found that the Runnymede Trust has also done some work around that. Yes, so there's some evidence around that.
That's bad news, because that affects young people's chances of getting into good universities. Correct. Because the offers are made before the actual results come out. So, and what has been done about it? Do you know if any actions have been taken to remedy this problem?
I won't talk about the overall picture, but from our young people, if ever we come across that, we normally advocate on behalf of the young people and take this with the schools concerned. For example, like the last time when the A-level results came out, we had to advocate on behalf of 6 students who their results had to be changed, and they were admitted finally. But so just a small anecdotal evidence of what we have done previously. Last lockdown we had, when there was that fiasco, and we had to follow this on behalf of some young people. I won't talk of nationally, but the simple steps we have done as an organization to try and support those young people so they also have enough opportunities to also be able to achieve their full potential.
Thank you, Rogers. I think parents need to get involved and complain to their education authorities, because unless more action is taken by organizations such as yours and the parents themselves, this problem will linger on. Thank you.
Just to add on to Rosita also, sometimes the parents might be having the well-meaning to support their children, but if you do not understand the curriculum, how the tests are done, how the grading is done, you would not be able to support your children well. So sometimes it's also important for the parents to understand and to be made aware of how this affects. For example, there is a way in which the children are put into sets and moving from one set to the next. If you do the GCSE and you're in a lower set, you would not get more than a C. So, I mean, it's not a must that everybody has to get an A, but we need to have informed, we have to be informed of the decision or how the grading is done, such that even if your child is in that particular grade, they know and they can still work to achieve their full potential. Thank you.
I know, and it's psychological as well. If you're placed in that group, then you automatically don't feel confident enough to strive for an A, for instance. It's quite natural, especially for children who need encouragement. It's quite an eye-opener. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Roger. I would like to say something. Keep up the good work. You've been working very hard. I know your organization for many years now, and I have worked with your organization and supported your organization. And all of you have been working really hard, and all the good work you've been doing. I really admire your support to other organizations and the hard work you're doing yourself to the community. It's really rewarding.
Thank you, Sanjit. Any other questions or
Lisa?
Rogers, it was just something that you said about the education system.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, there are unconscious biases, and with regards to parents, sometimes when they're on low incomes and they're working very long hours, they just haven't got the time to keep up with the education as well. So it's very, very difficult for the parents to advocate for their children, especially as English is their second language. Sometimes they just don't understand the system. So, you know, I would say like more organisations like yourselves need to advocate for these children, these young people, to be able to keep an eye on their education, because also with their GCSEs, if they have a lower GCSE mark, that affects what college, what subjects they're going to be able to do. I've had 3 children through the school system. So it's like, it's a tracker. So literally your card is marked, you know, from your GCSE, and it kind of follows you a bit. So it's very, very difficult. And I sympathise, you know, I sympathise as a parent that have also had to work long hours. It's extremely difficult trying to work, hold a job down, pay bills, and keep a track on an education system as well, which you don't really understand. So maybe it does need more organisations like yourself throughout the borough who have people not specialised, but in the with the interest and the knowledge of advocating and keeping track for the children, especially when they're, you know, starting their GCSEs, so they can, yeah, just monitor them on behalf of themselves and for the parents as well, and have that connection between the parent, the school child, and the and the school, basically. So,
yeah, thank you, Lisa. I mean, what you've said is quite the reason as to why we set up the supplementary education program, to look at the parents. Sometimes they are in a catch-22 situation. They are working long hours. They are not able. They are trying to pay the bills, but then they also have the children. The children need extra support. So that's why we set up the supplementary schools, to look at those young people who need that extra support, whether in math, English, and science. And it's not only the subjects, but the other well-rounded being, because we also teach leadership skills and mentorship, as yes, the whole development of the child. So that's where we try to come in, and hopefully we can have a more collaborative work to try and see how we can support the young people.
You need to duplicate yourself and triplicate yourself, so you can be in every single town in the borough, I think.
Resources.
Yeah.
Yes, Rosita. Oh, sorry.
Yes, I wonder how your organization promotes itself. Do all parents with Black children, do they know about your services to access it when there are issues? Do you make links with African Caribbean organizations to make sure that they know about you? I know I've only been here for a short time, but I certainly wasn't aware of your project. So I think promotion is important. You might not have the capacity to cope with more demand than you already have. So resources are important as well. And how do you fundraise? Who funds you? And do you have enough resources to expand as demand rises for your services?
Unfortunately, because of the resources, we cannot be able to expand as we would have liked to. We are a member of the Hounslow Community Network that has mostly the non-governmental organizations working in Hounslow. So we link into that. If we have our resources or any publicity material, we go through that. We also linked with the London Borough of Hounslow Community Partnership Unit, that whenever we have any activities, we pass through that. And the Social Services Department and Out of Care. So we try to link that, but the fact of the matter is we cannot be able to take many, depending on the resources. Like at the moment, we have a waiting list of 20 young people. We can't take them because of the resources. And Matthew, before the lockdown, we were operating from a community center or every week. But during the lockdown, that has to be cut down. It means we have to put everything online. And then during putting everything online, you have a teacher, they have to have a teaching assistant to support them. But how do you do that online? Because if you have 10 kids, okay, you might be able, the Zoom would be able to allow you to put them in a different rooms, but how do you maintain that connection so that they will be able to follow what you are trying to teach at that particular time? Is more difficult online than when it is face-to-face. So those are some of the challenges as well, which comes with this when you try to look at that.
What about boroughs outside Hounslow? Do you have clients from Ealing, for instance?
We have clients from Ealing and also from Hammersmith and Fulham.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, Hen has asked, can she refer young people to your organization?
Yes, indeed, we can. In fact, at the moment, we are also going to start another program called Good for Girls. But this one is specifically for girls to try and empower girls to have a voice about themselves from the ages of 10 to 16 years old. But apart from that, other services, yes, they can be able to refer to our programs.
I think Ord's got a question.
Sorry, I've got to get used to doing this. I'm Aude from the Ealing Young Foundation. I'm the Membership Development Manager. I started about a month ago. I'm very interested in what you just said, Rogers, and also all the comments that have been made. I'm a youth worker by trade. This is what I do, mainly detached youth work. And I've worked very, very hard to reach young people. And I'm just really saddened to hear about all the issues that young people are facing with COVID at the moment, and adults do. But I just wanted to say we have a youth voice panel that we're setting up at Ealing Young Foundation. And I'm just wondering if some of your young people will be interested in joining. It's a very good opportunity for to kind of make decisions with us about the Ealing Young Foundation, to shape it, to sort of help with the recovery with COVID-19. And I just wanted to say that your detached work and your supplementary school as well, it's a fantastic thing that you're doing. And we also fund different organizations. We're set up in Ealing, but there may be some parts of funding you can access through linking with me. So I'm wondering if you wanted to give me your email so we could talk about your young people and see if some of them are interested in the Youth Voice panel. I mean, it's totally free. It's called the Young Champions Program. And I just wanted, I know it's a name that resonates with everyone because there's a lot of young champions in the moment, but we might change the name. But I just wanted to forward you the information if you're interested, or anyone else. We are recruiting young people at the moment. There's lots of advantages in apprenticeship they can do, lots of different opportunities to have a voice and to be heard, especially through this very difficult time. So I don't know if, Roger, you'd be interested in giving me your email address and I could send you the package information, and same for everyone else that is interested.
Yeah, not only you, I would share my emails and contact to everybody here. I think if we can collaborate and work together, we can achieve more.
Yeah, and support. I think your organization is absolutely fantastic. Supplementary schools are a very good way to, help young people as well with their self-esteem at the moment, with the way they feel, to be kind of more, feeling more, sorry, suddenly I can't speak English. I speak English very well, but suddenly I'm like, just more sort of feeling less isolated. I think that's what I mean. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Jane?
Oh.
Hello, Rogers. I work with CVS and I'm running a digital inclusion program. And part of that program is to develop and recruit and support and train young people to be digital champions. We're in the process of setting up with a number of groups in Hounslow already, working with their young people. I was just wondering if your group would be interested in working with us on that.
Yeah, maybe I think there's been a conversation around that, so maybe I could be able to follow that with you after at some point.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and in terms of sharing emails, if people put their emails in the chat, I can circulate the chat to people afterwards. So that's how we can share your contact details. Any other questions for Rogers? Okay, thanks, Rogers. I'll circulate his slides along with the others. I think Maddie was going to give a short update as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian, and thanks to Rogers just for that amazing presentation. I had lots of thoughts kind of buzzing through my head, but I feel like I need to go away and think about it. But I'd not heard of your organisation before, Rogers, so I've been looking you up because it slightly relates to the point that I just wanted to raise today. It's just a reminder of a couple of events that are coming up from Ealing Council side. So 2 weeks ago, I gave a quick introduction to some work we've been doing in the public health team with the wider council in Ealing on inequalities, COVID inequalities, but also recognising very much that all of these inequalities are mostly exacerbated ones that existed previously and have just been made worse through either the direct impact of COVID illness or bereavement, or impact of a loved one or a carer having been ill, or the indirect impact of all the national restrictions and all the all the restrictions and guidance that we've all been working and living under. So this piece of work is technically in the council being called an integrated impact assessment, to acknowledge that these impacts upon individuals are not discrete ones. They kind of layer upon often the same groups of people, sadly, and also layer and connect in different ways. They produce different kinds of misfortune and trouble. So, but what we've done, it's very much a process. It's been a process throughout. It's not been focused on an output. We really wanted to resist, well, I personally wanted to resist producing a report that sat on a shelf and didn't have the kind of necessary impact within the council and our partners working with the community that we really need coming through the last stages of the pandemic, learning to live with COVID because, you know, we need to do that, learning to think about the future with COVID, and also, of course, just addressing that inequalities more widely. And of course, this is a massive opportunity for us all to work together on that. And I feel there's a huge momentum around that. And all of the discussions today highlight it, but also all of your meetings, I feel, in the last few weeks, the ones I've attended, have done that as well. So the process so far, because we've been all having to kind of shut down and do a lot of internal work with the COVID pandemic direct response, we've done some work on the quantitative data that we could use during the first wave. We're looking to update that in the second wave, which does look at which demographics, which life circumstances of people have been affected the most from the pandemic, particularly infection, healthcare admissions or severe illness, and also death. And we will be updating that quantitative data with the second wave's data now. But of course, that isn't, for me, that isn't the most important bit. The most important bit has been a process of engagement through various forums with individuals, and now with a series of meetings which the council has been previously running as area task-based meetings, basically regionally focused meetings to have a bi-directional conversation with community leaders and make sure that we're not only disseminating COVID information outwards, but also hearing response and concerns back from the community, so that we've been able to deal with some of those issues live time. So those meetings have occurred throughout the pandemic, but what we've managed to do is just borrow the agenda space for the last round of those meetings that are happening in March, to have a much more broader reflective conversation with all attendees about achieving equality, our reflections and next steps. And behind this is a desire to really shake the system up a little bit in terms of community engagement, and ensure that we are doing the grassroots, the co-production, all these buzzwords, but essentially ensuring that power and resource is shifted to the places it needs to be, in order that community engagement can be done in an honest and in a genuine and an authentic and effective way. And we in the council are looking to support that, but of course that we need to nurture that from within the community. So the reflective discussion is all about that, really, the start of, I hope, more conversations and more structures, maybe ideas for structures in which we can work together more closely, whether that is forums, networks, whatever it is, people's ideas are coming forward throughout these meetings. And of course, a lot of the space in the meeting is also just to reflect on the inequality itself and hear a little bit more detail on people's lived experiences of those, often from the community leaders' perspectives, but we have had people attend, and obviously the space is for people to share their personal views as well. So 2 of these meetings have happened already, and as I said, they had a previous structure. They're chaired by councillors. They had a previous kind of purpose to deal with the more direct response and feedback of the COVID pandemic. But 2 are still due to happen, not next week, but the week after, in the week commencing the 22nd. The first is a North Holt area-based meeting, and the second is a Perivale and Greenford area-based meeting. So it is very place-focused and very Ealing focused. But I've sent information to Nyoka, who very kindly circulated it, I think, last week, and we were drip feeding the links. I have to profoundly apologise that the link to the Southall one didn't get to you all, and that was yesterday. It was a total error on our part. We thought that someone else had sent it to the Cash Network. So the Acton one, I believe you had, and I think some of you may have attended. the North Alton Greenford one are coming up, and I can share the details. The links still aren't available, so they will be coming soon, and we'll make sure that that mistake from yesterday doesn't happen again. But you know, I think on the back of that, I come to these meetings to meet you all, to understand what's happening in the community, and to be able to kind of touch base, maybe on a one-to-one with some of you when pertinent issues are raised, and that information and that sharing and that understanding that I'm gaining from that process will also form part of the integrated impact assessment, so that the council can learn how to proceed with addressing inequalities for the future, working very closely with community groups. So it's not the most straightforward of process to explain to you. I hope that was roughly clear. Really would welcome your input to those last two meetings if you're able. I'll put the dates and times in the chat now, and then of course we'll recirculate that information with the links when through Nyoka when we get them. But please also do just get in contact with me if you think that something about the process resonates with you, or you think you would like to contribute in any way, even if it's just a quick chat, understanding your part to play and what you do as community leaders and organisers and facilitators in every way. So really would love to kind of connect with you and make sure that we can work together on all these really important issues for the future. Thanks, Ian, and everyone.
Thanks, Maddie. And if you send us the Teams link, we can circulate that as well, because obviously there's no point in setting the date if people don't have anywhere they can access the meeting either.
So yeah, sorry, and that's the problem, is that we so far yet don't have the Teams link. I have the rough time and date, but this has been the problem with it. But I will make sure those come to you, and apologies again for yesterday. It was a total error on our part.
Thanks. Any
Hiya.
questions for Maddie?
Yeah, hi all. The company is Messiah 7. My name's Natasha Smith-Jones. I'm speaking as we run a community-led organisation, a CIC, and we provide space for young people to kind of get more awareness of mental health and projects. We design the projects within. We are looking to expand to be able to do more, and also hand over a lot more support to communities, as we are now Ofsted regulated and can provide a lot more for young people and expand. So I'd be interested in anyone who wants to partnership up. We are not just based in Hounslow, although we love Hounslow, but we are able to expand to neighbouring boroughs as well. So I'll put my contact details, and would love to do some work and some projects with anyone who's interested.
Okay, thanks, Natasha.
Thank you.
And we haven't got any more scheduled speakers, so yeah, it's basically time for just general discussion. Anyone who wants to make any points?
Yeah, I would like to talk to Maddie, Ian. Maddie, can we deliver anything under your area? Sunshine of Hounslow from in Hounslow area. If there's anything we can deliver for you, so could you, Ian, could you get us contact with the Maddie as well, please, through the emails?
Sure, happy to chat, Shanjit. Yeah, happy to chat always. I mean, I'm always looking for kind of, you know, ways in which we can work together, and understanding what each other do and how we can connect. So please do get in touch.
Yeah, we are running allotment clubs at the moment. We've got 3 projects going on: allotment clubs and yoga online as well, and walk club, yoga and walk club, and also art and craft club, which covers Ealing and Hounslow area as well, and is doing really well. So if there's anything we can deliver to keep the isolation down, and also to engage young children as well. During the pandemic, these were the worst people in the isolation and suffering. So since we started, to be honest, we spend all our grant, and there is so much demand to keep up with the classes. people says, I said 2 more weeks, and they go, oh no, what are we going to do next? So, you know, we will be looking for something to engage women and young children as well. So if there's anything we can deliver in both boroughs, I'll be happy to, you know, to have a chat with you.
Are you connected with Ealing Together, Shanjit, or not?
Hounslow and Ealing, yes, yeah. Our Sunshine of Hounslow office is in Lido Centre.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are you connected with Ealing Together, which is Ealing Council's kind of package of support system, which is working very closely with ECS around social support, befriending, financial and food, or not yet? Because I can link you with them. That's possibly the best route in. Okay, great. Drop me an email or share your email address, and I'm happy to do that.
There is an email address in the chat.
Okay. Hi, Evelyn. I've seen my colleague Evelyn's on the line. You'll probably be able to help. Thanks.
Hello. Ian, are you okay if I tell people about the community support directory that we have? Hello, my name is Evelyn Gloyn. I work for Ealing Council. I'm part of the Ealing Together response that Ealing Council put together, and my role through it has been the liaison between the VCS sector and also the faith group sector and the Ealing Together work. The Ealing Together at the moment has a web platform. It also has a telephone number, which is 020 8825 7100, and that's where you access help if you find that you suddenly find yourself you have to self-isolate, or you've been classed as shielded and you need some support, or alternatively if you come across people that need support, then you can ring that number and you'll get triaged to make sure any of the support needs that you need. In addition to that, we also have actually got what we call a community support directory, which lists any of the voluntary and also community groups that are actually doing or offering something during this COVID-19 crisis stroke ongoing situation, and so we already have quite a few groups already on there, but if anybody wants to be added to it, then they are very welcome to be added to it, and I can send out a kind of like a template for people to fill in, and we can then make sure that your details are added. It's just to say it is focused around the COVID-19 response, so it's not so much to promote all the different works that you do, although obviously it can provide a link to your websites, which will obviously give people a much better overview of yourselves. It's very much about if you were a total stranger in the borough, you needed support in whether it's about your mental health and well-being, feeling isolated, or you need somebody just to help you walk the dog because you've now got to self-isolate for the next 10 days, all those different opportunities. It just gives people that one-stop shop to be able to go to it. I will apologise for the way that the format of the form is. It was actually something that was actually put together by Camden right at the very beginning of the outbreak. And it wasn't really sort of specifically designed the way we would have wanted it to do. So it's got very broad categories. So when you actually ask to sort of select which categories you are, they are quite limited. So you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit about if you're offering something, for example, like bereavement counselling, my suggestion would be if you stick it under the sort of the mental health and well-being element, because that's probably the closest one. Also just to bear in mind, if you are offering financial advice, then we will obviously require that you are a certified body if you're going to be offering financial advice. But other than that, anything else that you wish to promote as being a way of being able to support people through COVID-19, then please, you're very welcome to be added. So Ian, is it okay if after the meeting I'll send you the template and a few sort of instructions, and people can then fill it in if they want to be added?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to make any points? Amrit?
Hi there. Am I on mute? Yeah, I'm off mute now. Hi there, everyone. My name is Amrit. I'm a UK Managing Director, karate instructor for the UK. We've been running karate classes in the West London area since 1978. We currently have like 15 classes where we offer a space for a lot of kids, young children, also adults and teenagers, everything down to toddlers as well, to try to help build their confidence, self-esteem, discipline, suppleness, strengths, general health and well-being, mental health and well-being. So if anybody finds himself wanting to try to connect with me, please feel free. I'm happy to help, happy to serve. I've been doing this for a very long time, so you know, I'm not a stranger to kind of get down and get things going, get the ball rolling.
Okay, thanks, Amrit. I think Natasha had her hand is raised as well.
Sorry, it was just to say that we already have done a lot of pilot projects already. I'm coming from a media background, so I'm able to utilize my media connections in order to, I design the programs to enhance better results for the young people that come into the programs. So if anybody's interested in doing a project for young people, I'm all in for designing and developing that program. I design them quite bespokely, and I have a lot of people from the media that are willing to come in to enhance it and just to give young people an extra way, a different way of looking at things, especially in this time, mental health, and also just to give a voice of how they've overcome. So definitely, if anybody's interested, that was why I put up my hand. So yes.
Okay, thanks. Henna?
Sorry, could you
sorry,
explain
Amrit?
what that was, or what it is you do, just a little bit more? Sorry, I didn't grasp that.
Sorry, I do apologize. Is that Amaret? Were you speaking to me?
Yeah, that's great.
Right, so Messiah 7 develops and delivers bespoke workshops for the young and the vulnerable.
Okay.
Whilst giving employability and volunteering opportunities for, you know, disadvantaged families to pull themselves out of disadvantaged environments. So that's what we do. We develop, and so I actually come from, I'm a journalist by trade. So being in the media, I'm able to scoop a lot of friends and connections to provide and to enhance the actual programs that are developed and designed. So that's what we do. We've had a lot of people come in. We've got some good connections. We've had some excellent workshops, and also the diversity that we provide within, in terms of allowing young people to speak about their feelings, and also creating more avenues of discussion which need to be done for young people to feel free to share, and also show examples of unity within the community. And that's what we do. That's actually what our youth clubs are called, unity in the community. So that's what we do.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So a workshop, mainly everybody gets together and a lot of discussions. Okay, thank you for that.
Well, the workshops are designed in many different ways. So you have different workshops. We've had workshops to do with save a life, don't take a life. So we did that to do with knife crime. So we brought in, I don't know if you've heard of an organization by the name of Street Doctors. They came in and they did workshops over time, and just listening to the young people's feelings. It was very interesting, and, you know, just developing them to be aware. We've had Run the World with Girls, which has been very insightful for young people. We want to run that again. We were sponsored by Sleek. So we want to keep on running these projects to just develop. We've got a few projects we've designed. We're just waiting for, you know, lockdown to ease up, and then we can be in place to develop more.
Great. That sounds great.
Okay. Thanks, Natasha. I think Henna had a hand up.
Hi everyone, I'm Henna, and I work in Hounslow Council in Children's Services, and I manage the family support team there. It's really lovely to kind of hear what is out there and available. Really interested in what Natasha just shared, because we would be very interested to kind of find out a bit more. We work with children from the age of pre-birth till the age of 18. And it's really good to kind of find out a bit more services that we could access for the for the families that we work with, particularly families from ethnic backgrounds, particularly where their English is not their first language. So if we have any services that run in different languages, that would be very good, particularly for females that feel quite isolated from African and Asian backgrounds. So yeah, I'm just here to kind of find out a bit more about everyone that's shared their services. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Henna. I think Victor was next.
Yes, I actually put in a note in the chat line. I'm a research officer for the Federation of Poles in Great Britain, and I also happen to live in Hounslow, and I used to be an Ealing councillor, so hence sort of a bit of a local collection. One of our biggest concerns at the moment over COVID is the resistance that we see and hear in the Polish, particularly the younger Polish community, against vaccinations. This is a lot of very, I mean, Poland is actually on record as being one of the most skeptical when it comes to vaccinations. And this is obviously having its effect here. We organise, our member organisations have organised conferences with Polish doctors and so on in Liverpool, in Newcastle, in Oxford, in London. So we've been very active in trying to promote this. What we actually are lacking, I mean, we have many of the arguments and so on, but what we seem to be lacking is any statistics. I mean, there seem to be plenty of statistics generally on the BAME community, on South Asian, on African communities and the problems there about those who are the difficulties of spreading the word about positivity of vaccinations. We can't seem to find anything about Eastern Europe or Poland specifically. I mean, we are, you know, there's 1 million of us in the UK still at this stage, and that doesn't include those who are born here second generation, but that's just those who are Polish nationals. We are quite sizable, and we feel that there could be quite a danger at some stage where Poles get left behind by the time we sort of clear up with the vaccinations through into July. And I just wondered where we can find resources on statistics for this.
Yeah, I would imagine maybe like the CCG, Health Watch might be able to help you.
I can try and add what I know, Victor. I messaged actually in response to your message to say, please do get in touch if I can help connect to the right people. What I know of vaccination data is, it's held centrally by the NHS, and we in public health and local authorities are trying all ways to get access to it to support the work that the councils are doing to support the overall vaccine programme. On sort of the groups of people who are being offered and then either accepting or for whatever reason declining a first offer and either waiting or, you know, whatever you want to call it, hesitancy, etc. The demographic breakdown is very difficult, and we've been struggling to get really nuanced data from our NHS colleagues on that. It all relates to how ethnicity or country of origin or country of birth or migration status is recorded within primary care data often, and that's obviously not brilliant, so we don't get brilliant nuance either. Having said that, you know, I do hear from NHS colleagues that there are improvements being made and people are working to try and drill down. So I'm not close to the latest on the vaccination data for Ealing, for example. My colleague leads on it, but certainly if you get in touch, I can try and see if there's a link to the best person at North West London NHS and or just understand your question a bit further. But it is very tricky. I don't think you're experiencing something unique. You're sadly experiencing what a lot of us are facing when we're trying to understand a more nuanced degree of demographic information in vaccine data. It's been really challenging.
Okay, thank you for that, and I welcome that link. Sorry, CCG is what's CCG stand for? Just remind me.
So CCG is a clinical commissioning group, and they're often now pulled together into what you'll have seen in the media, maybe the integrated care systems. But essentially, it's a group of GPs who are GPs and other colleagues who are responsible for commissioning health services. So it's the NHS that are leading on the delivery of the vaccine, and that's where the data is initially collected and held. What we get access to in the council, as I say, is a version of that. And usually it's what they have, but it's been really, really difficult to get, for example, the right denominator, so the right original group of people who were even offered the vaccine, in order to be able to understand the number of people who've taken it up, because of course a statistic makes no sense in just numbers. We need to understand what proportion of people are accessing or not in different nuanced ethnic and, as I said, country of origin, migration status groups. It's very complicated, but it's been raised as an issue within the wider NHS and local authority systems many times, and I do know that people are working on trying to get more nuanced data. I would just be really keen to link you with a lot of work going on at North West London level on vaccine hesitancy and understanding different groups that need support. So I think there might be something broader than the data that we could kind of help you with.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, well, we're coming towards the end of this session, so I think it's been a very good session. Thanks to all the speakers. I will circulate the slides and the chat file, so you'll be able to see contact details in the chat file. Next week, we've got someone from Hounslow Council talking about domestic violence as one of our speakers, but information will be circulated to people beforehand, so hope to see you next week, and yeah, thanks very much for attending. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to meet.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.